Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. You're watching my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, August 19th, 2024. Enjoy. Case file number 1777, written by Unflapped Yeti, The Burlesque Glance, an Eldritch Dance. I grew up in a very conservative Catholic household, church and Sunday school. I have one older sister and 4 brothers. This story I'm going to tell took place when I was a little boy. My sister was terrible, mean, and a bully. She never let any of us near her room. One day, my sister wasn't home, and my grandma was occupied. I was so curious about my sister's room because I had never seen it. I go snooping. Wasn't really looking for anything in particular, just seeing what there is to see. I was curious as to what her view out of her window looked like. She had a tall window that overlooked the pool and blue blinds. I peeked between the blinds to get a glimpse of the pool. I should mention it is broad daylight. When suddenly I see a very scantily clad female figure saunter down the poolside. I could not see her upper half. She walked towards the window, turned around, and sashayed away. I was stunned. I didn't know what I was looking at, but I knew this figure was inappropriately dressed, that it wasn't one of the 2 women who lived in the house. As an adult, I recognized the outfit of the figure to be similar to the lower half of a burlesque dancer. Fishnets, black pumps, and a tight one-piece with flare at the hips. I was around 5 years old at the time, give or take a year, and my sister was only 6 years older than me. It obviously was not her. It was clearly not my grandma either. After I saw the figure, I ran out of my sister's room. I would think about it from time to time, but I never said anything because of my strict family. I was snooping. Some time passes, perhaps months or years, I don't know. It was a long time ago. But I had another chance to explore my sister's room. It was under similar circumstances as the first time I went snooping. This was only the second time I'd ever seen my sister's room. As I approach her room, I remember the lady I saw last time, and I remember thinking that I was probably just seeing things. I walk in, look around, note some changes, and head to the window. I peek through the blinds, and may God strike me if I did not see the same figure, walking the same way, wearing the same outfit, disappearing the same way without me seeing her face. I was overcome with fear. I felt my face go cold and I rushed out of my sister's room. To this very day, I have absolutely no clue who or what I saw walking in my grandmother's backyard. I have no explanations and no theories other than it was a ghost. This is why I 100% believe in ghosts and spirits. Case file number 1778, written by Fold a Million Times. Memories Twisted, Truths Unlisted. I know that the more you mull over and replay a memory, the less reliable it becomes. Your brain overwrites things, and it changes incrementally over time. I heard it put best in the sci-fi show The Expanse, when a guy says, "You know, every time you remember something, your mind changes it, just a little, until your best and your worst memories are your biggest illusions." So I know that's a fact, but I have this memory that has since been deemed as traumatic. It's very detailed, about a thing that definitely happened in front of me, and it's incredibly vivid. But just this last week, I was able to ask someone who was there, and an adult at the time, how they remembered it. He was a cop and basically a professional witness. Broke down a little about how he avoids fuzzing up memories like that, but if his recollection is more reliable, then I have made up a whole extra scenes that did not happen, and that really bothers me. What happened? Short version. My uncle got stabbed in my front yard with a carving knife when I was 7 or 8, a few feet from me. He had yelled at a car that went speeding down our residential street, doing over double the speed limit. The guy came back 10 minutes later with the knife in his back pocket. My uncle was a knucklehead, fresh out of the US Marine Corps. Though he was reasonably also concerned that this guy pulled up like that with me and another cousin playing right there in the yard. He was basically moving to be between us and him. Anyway, when they got close, The guy pulled the knife and stuck him right in the gut. Almost killed him, but didn't quite. All this happened on the driveway, and the guy sped off right after. And other adults came out of the house and took care of my uncle until the ambulance showed up. My uncle never left the driveway and was lying on the curb when the ambulance showed up. But I remember this whole extra scene in which my dad and my uncle had to carry him into the house, put him on the bed, and my mother was doing first aid, etc. I remember them seeing me and my cousin standing there and sending us over to the neighbor's house. We were sent next door, but right there from the yard. And it's not a big deal, but the memory of what didn't happen is so vivid, and so are the parts that did happen. I can remember the Star Wars figure in my hand, Walrus Man for the curious. Seeing the guy reach for the knife, and the split second I knew my uncle didn't see it. I remember my dad chasing the car with a grip on the guy driving as he took off, and one of his flip-flops flying through the air when it came off. But that whole procession into the house? Utter bullcrap. Every bit as detailed as the parts I was able to confirm, but apparently it never happened. Would you like my weekly and monthly compilations completely ad-free? If so, check out the link in the description to my Patreon, where for $3 a month, you can get them all completely ad-free. Case file number 1779. Written by Sweet Cheese. The casino car. But who's that girl? Bizarre. So one day, my friend and I went to pick up her baby daddy at his job, which is a big casino in town, and she left me in the car for about 30-ish minutes. I remember the whole thing. I was just sitting in the passenger seat alone. No one else was in the car. I took one selfie of me on her phone, never moving out of the passenger seat. They got back in the car. She never looked at her phone until we got back to her house. While she was checking her phone, she looked up at me and said, "Who are you with in my car?" I was confused. I said, "There was no one else." She showed me the photo, and it is of me sitting in her driver's seat with a girl in the passenger seat next to me smiling for the photo. I said, "Yeah, I had no words for a little bit. I said, "I don't know who that is, and I never change seats. Not one of us knows who the girl is." Still to this day, we have no idea who is in that photo or how it got there. I was in the same outfit and everything from that day. We asked our friends if they knew her. No one had any answer. I know for a fact I never changed seats. I wouldn't get some random girl to take a photo with me, inside sitting in my friend's car at that. The photo is on my friend's old laptop. It's still there. Very strange, and we talk about it from time to time. We have had other weird experiences in the years as well. Case file number 1780, written by Curly-Haired Wife. Pup's Secret Flight, From Driveway to Bedtime Delight. My sister lives across the street and has a 14-year-old dog, who has to be picked up and carried up steps to get in the bed. He was at my house hanging out, so I let him outside yesterday morning, through the front door to go pee. I was hoping it'd be a quick pee, but he started walking up the driveway sniffing around. So I stepped back inside, closed the door, then continued cooking breakfast when I had to run across the street to my sister's to grab a container. Once I walked outside, I was like, oh crap, I left him outside. I didn't see him while walking over to her house. When I got to her door, I asked if he came to her house or was in her backyard. She said he wasn't there. It's normal for him to wander off, but I know people don't play with their dogs. Started to panic like, oh my god, did I just lose our dog? I started looking around outside calling his name. He always comes to his name. I was panicking even more once I realized there was no sign of him outside. I went back in the house searching and went upstairs in a desperate attempt looking for him, but knowing good and well he can't go up the steps. Y'all, not only was the guy upstairs, but he was laying on the bed asleep, snoring. Best sleep of his life. Mind you, the bed is at least 2 feet off the ground, and this little guy can't even get on the couch, barely even a dog bed on the floor, let alone a bed that high off the ground. I was so relieved to find him, but I have no idea how, but so thankful I didn't lose him. His mom would have never forgiven me. Case file number 1781, written by CG40, Boat. Okinawa Bangs and Timer Clangs. When I was 20 years old, I spent a year on a US Coast Guard Lawrence station in Okinawa. It was an isolated duty station with a crew of about 25. I was on an all-night watch on the lower end A times when I heard a loud bang. The timers were about the size of a refrigerator, and there were 2 rows of 4 timers on each side, spaced about 6 inches apart, with the watchstander's desk between the rows. When I heard the bang, I walked around to the electronics repair area directly behind the timers, and found that the lid to a small metal trash can had come off and flown across the room, landing on the concrete floor. I picked it up and replaced it. I walked back to the desk, and within a minute or 2, it happened again. Bang! The trash can lid hit the floor about 15 feet away from the trash can. I replaced it and went back to my desk. It then happened a 3rd time. No one else was around, and no one could have come into the room without me seeing them. I walked around and picked up the lid again, and as I was walking towards the trash can, which sat under a stand with a coffee urn on it, some spoons in a water glass next to the coffee pot stood up and started rattling back and forth in the glass. As I reached out to grab them, a salt shaker next to the glass tipped over and the lid unscrewed as I watched and the salt poured out. I started back to my desk to call the engineer on duty at the other end of the station. I took about 5 steps back towards the desk. As I cleared the row of Lauren timers, a small plastic tray next to the phone flew off the desk as if it were thrown and hit the floor, about 8 feet in front of me, scattering paper all over the floor. I called the engineer and told him things were flying around the timer room. He called the XO, and they both showed up about 10 minutes later and hung around for a while, looking at me sideways. The XO questioned me about what happened. Then they left. The engineer went back to his watch, and the XO went back to bed. Nothing more happened that night, or any other night that I stood watch for the rest of the year. I've never had any other paranormal thing happen to me before or since. What was strange in retrospect is that I wasn't particularly frightened, more confused at what was happening. It was a very well-lit room where I spent a lot of time on watch, and I was never at all uncomfortable there. I remember thinking at the time that there might be some kind of power surge in the generators. We transmitted these super low frequency pulses that went all over the North Pacific. Case file number 1782, written by O.K. Huckleberry, 1588. Clarksville chill, when time stands still. This happened years ago. It was a weekend and I was in the kitchen getting myself some coffee. I then sat at the kitchen table. A song came on the radio, Drift Away by Dobie Gray, as I was at the kitchen table. I decided I would check to see if the laundromat was open. It is almost straight ahead on another street from the front of the trailer I was living in. I went outside to do this and had to walk about 20 feet before I had a view of the laundromat, to see if the lady's car that worked there showed up yet. It was there. I then go to the living room, sit on the couch, and put on my shoes and I finish my coffee. I then go to my bedroom at the opposite end of the trailer from where the kitchen is, to get my dirty clothes. I then grab the laundry detergent that was in the bathroom. I leave and I have to walk by 3 trailers, lengthwise, and cross 2 roads inside the trailer park. Then I had to cross 1 more street after leaving the trailer park, not before waiting for a car to go by. I go in and get change from a machine inside, then put detergent and clothes in the washer and put coins in. Then I leave and go back to the trailer I live in. I walk in and the same song is playing and continues for at least another minute. This wasn't the only time something strange happened when I lived there. 2 other times I could see where everything looked frozen in the distance. One time the traffic looked like it wasn't moving even though there was no reason for it. Then it looks like it's moving slow. Then all of a sudden, when it reaches me, traffic is going fast. Another time people were frozen at a distance as I was pumping gas. I think another man noticed it also. That other man pumping gas kept pumping when his tank was full. It made a big puddle of gas on the ground before I told him. This was along Fort Campbell Boulevard in Clarksville, Tennessee, near the Kentucky border. Case file number 1783, written by Negative Teacher 867. Coke gone awry in a night of grocery lies. When I was away at college, one night I had Chinese food and half a bottle of Coke. I put the other half in my mini fridge in my bedroom. The next night, my 2 roommates and I went grocery shopping and I came back with a brand new bottle. I then went to my bedroom and put the new bottle away, taking out my leftovers and the half bottle of Coke. As I heated up my food in the kitchen, I went back to my room to put more things away. When I returned to the dining room, the half bottle of Coke was gone. I thought maybe I got confused and put it away, so I checked my fridge, and it was just the brand new full bottle. My roommates were in the kitchen when I had brought my leftovers, but they remember the half Coke being there too. We were all really confused. I had them help me look in case I was missing something. We started to feel crazy, and I started to think they were pranking me. We were tearing apart our entire apartment because we couldn't understand. Not in cabinets, garbage cans, nowhere. I started to spiral, and they assured me it's probably somewhere so random, and that you'll find it when we move out in May. To this day, we never found that bottle. They remember it, and we are still very close friends. This was about 3 years ago. I think about it constantly, and I've made them both swear up and down they never touched the bottle. This seems like a silly story, but it irks me to my core. I am convinced it is some kind of glitch. Case file number 1784, written by Suspicious Kazoo. The Bonkers case of the 5-minute chase. How I got home when I was 3. I was at the park near a school with my great aunts and my brothers. I got bored after a while and told my aunts I wanted to go home. They said that we were going home very soon. Me, being 3 and a brat, decided to walk home by myself. I remembered how we got to the park, so I decided to go back without telling anyone. As I was walking, I remembered walking across a particularly busy intersection. There was a massive red truck that I walked in front of. I walk up the block to my house and walk in through the front door. Entire trip took under 5 minutes tops. My mother sees me and is extremely confused. She kept asking how I got home, and I told her that I walked. This seemed to confuse her more, and she didn't understand how I got there. My aunts panicked because they couldn't find me. My mom tells them that I am home and all is well. Still, everyone is confused. I forgot about this memory until years later, and when I remembered, I was just as confused. Why? There was no park 5 minutes from my house. It would be 10 blocks, and a 3-year-old couldn't have walked that so quickly. There was also no major street that I would have to cross. I would have been walking alongside it. But I was at the park with my family that day. To this day, no one knows how I got home. It shouldn't have been possible for me to get home so quickly. There was no park in the location that I was describing. The story stays the same, but none of it is possible. I crossed a street that didn't exist in under 5 minutes when it should have taken me much longer. I will never know how I got home, but I would like to. Case file number 1785, written by Just a Little Bug Boy. Bewitching Laughter, the Dark Hereafter. She has these weird notches, seizures. We have no idea what they are. They've run tests on her while it's happening. How we know it's not seizures, not electrical, but everyone is mystified. When they started, it was horrifying. She was conscious, but not her. She would randomly laugh, grab her tongue and pull it, writhe, make sounds. She's a tiny thing and kicked 2 EMTs, one across the room. She would grab me and stare at me, gripping so tight it would bruise and break skin. This is not someone who would ever fake these things. She had to quit her job because they would happen at work. She worked a job where that couldn't happen. The scariest one I remember, she went to take a bath, and an hour later we realized the water never poured. We went to check, and when we opened the door, it banged into something and wouldn't open. We called out to her, and she started giggling and slowly scratching her nails down the door. She was standing in front of the door, had been for most of that hour. She giggled and scratched until we managed to push her back enough to get her. But the scariest part, besides a loved one having some intense neurological condition nobody can pin down, was when we moved. See, the apartment we were in had bad vibes. I called it haunted, but clearly some bad stuff had gone down there. The door had been kicked in at some point. We found substances in the drains. The cops came by several times our first year there looking for missing people. There were a lot of strange sounds, Strange things happening unrelated to Rumi's issue. When we moved back to my house, 100% boringly non-haunted, the not seizures didn't stop. But she never again has had that other weird personality. She's either herself and aware or sorta twilight conscious. No giggling, no weird activities, no strange sounds. Everything else is exactly the same, but there's no personality changes. Besides wanting to know just what the hell is happening, please give me medical advice, it's solicited. I want to know what the hell moved into her body when she wasn't home. Case file number 1786, written by The Four Wind. A tumble and a glare in the midnight air. Circa 2007, my brother and I were heading home from a night out. We were on a freeway interchange that had a large drop-off to the right. The drop was down a hill at least 15-20 feet. In front of us, a black SUV started spinning out of control and tumbled off the side. "Pull over," I shouted to my brother. "No way, we've been drinking," he replied. I convinced him whoever was in the crash was going to be really disoriented, more than likely severely injured. It was for the best someone was there to try to keep them calm and to not move until help arrived. "As soon as you see the siren lights, honk. I'll run up and we'll get out of there." My brother nodded. I flew down the hill as fast as I could. The SUV had landed on its tires. All of the glass was shattered. In the driver's seat was a man, disoriented and covered in blood. He was speaking in his native tongue. Fortunately, I knew a little bit myself. Enough to tell him an ambulance was on its way and that he needed to stay still. He was panicking, fear-stricken. Not the kind that one experiences during a car crash. He was afraid of something else. I could see it in his eyes as they bugged out from his face. That was when I noticed the blood he was covered in was dry. "What have you done?" I asked in his language. The man just stared at me, unable to form words, but pleading with me through his eyes. "Honk, honk." I looked up to see my brother signaling me, and I saw lights in the distance. "Just stay here," I said to the man and ran back up the hill. Jumped in my brother's car and we bolted out of there. This very much reads like a made-up story, I understand. It's probably because I have a flair for the dramatic. But I swear, this truly happened to me one night in 2007, and I always think about it to this day. I'll never know the truth. What did that man do? Case file number 1787, written by Hank's Panky Emporium. Thwarting Doom from a Pheasant's Room. Some gals tried to kidnap me from the farm when I was a small fella. Old enough to know better, but not technically old enough to be on my own for very long. But there was an emergency at work. Mom and Dad were both called in, which was weird. Mom was a registered nurse though, so maybe they needed more hands. Dad was a general surgeon. Two gals drove up in a cute little red 4-door sedan and knocked on the front door. The house was pretty hefty. It was designed to be a bed and breakfast, but we were well outside of civilization. Most of the activity in the area was during bird hunting season, pheasants specifically. Regardless, the gals asked me to open the door so they could talk about their lord. I already went to church, but I said I couldn't open the door. Technically true, there was a thick metal door jamb set up under the handle that anchored to the floor. Got it to protect the hinges if a storm tried to blow the door open. It happened once, long story. Long story short, I wasn't letting them in and they were getting pissed. One gal kept telling me God would kill me if I didn't, I was evil, etc., while the other jogged out to the car and looked around. We had very infrequent cars drive by since we were located nearest the wetlands. But there was a thicket between the house and the road, and the driveway had a big old curve to it. But I think they were worried my parents were coming home. Both gals eventually hop in the car and drive around the property, stopping just short of entering the larger pasture to the south. Had two big old ponds in it, but I bet they figured the path would cut up their tires. They come back, same spiel. "Open this freaking door or the devil will kill me." I was smart enough to not open the door, but not smart enough to call my parents. They buggered off. Felt like it'd taken forever, but I'm sure from start to finish it hadn't even been 10 minutes. When I told my parents later that night, when they got home, they told me to stop lying. I shrugged it off for a spell, but I'm fairly certain they had nefarious intent. Nab someone from a farmhouse? Who the hell would know where to start looking? Nearest neighbor was ages down the road, about a 4-minute drive, then another 25-ish minutes to the city limits. Humans can be the scariest creatures, no doubt about that. Case file number 1788, written by Deanna B77. Fire, Gleams, and Cairo Screams. When I was 10, we went to Egypt. We were in Cairo, and I had a vivid and violent dream. My dreams have always been in color, with conversations, plots, and usually many people that I know or have never met. This dream, however, was violent, which was not normal. In the dream, someone who was wearing a red, green, and brown horizontally striped sweater had taken me. He had done terrible, hurtful things to me. He had abducted me and I was attacked and alone and I was going to be killed. I was shocked to wake up at 4 a.m. I had a deep sense of despair and fear. I didn't wake up my dad because it was confusing. I don't know how I'd even articulate what I'd just experienced. Remember, I was 10. That morning, we had an awesome breakfast, then making our way to the taxi line to go see the Great Pyramids. Dad had been a cabbie for a short time in his youth, and I knew he always went to the front of the taxi line because those were the guys who had been waiting the longest for a customer. We were about 4 cabs from the front of the line, and there he was. The guy in the sweater from my dream. He was the cab driver at the front of the line. I stopped in my tracks and grabbed my dad's arm. "Daddy," I said, "we can't take that cab, not that one." He saw the look on my face and my body language and didn't miss a beat. Just pivoted and chose a different one. We didn't speak of it, and I felt so relieved that day. Many years later it came up in conversation. My dad recounted it from his perspective. He shared that he believed that kids had a sensitivity to their surroundings that adults sort of tamp down on or are desensitized to over years. He explained that when my older sister was 6, they were walking through a walled bazaar in Tehran, 1972-ish, when she tugged on his shirt and told him that they needed to leave. Without questioning her, he sprang into action. Since it was a closed space, he had to scramble them down an alley, towards the open-air portion and further away, towards the exit of the main boulevard. 1 minute after they left the market alley, Kalashnikov fire broke out. Over 30 people, including shopkeepers and regular people, market-goers, were ended. So when I froze on the street in Cairo, he took it as an indication that there was some danger and took appropriate action. He was amazing. Do me a favor and send him some thanks through the ether. He'd dig that. Thank you, stranger's dad. You did good. Case file number 1789, written by Possible Hat 9159. Voices clear that bring mysteries far and near. I have 2 quick stories. The first was back in 2012. My boyfriend at the time and I were driving down a country road at night when this light appeared in the sky in front of his car. It was like a super bright star had just hovered there for a few seconds before shooting straight up and disappearing. I mean, it went as fast as a shooting star and just vanished. We just looked at each other like, you saw that too, right? The second story, my freshman year of college. I was taking a nap in my dorm when I heard this voice clear as day say, "Cover your ears." I sat up and the fire alarms immediately started going off. I asked my roommate if she had heard anything and she swore she didn't. I still get goosebumps thinking about that one. Case file number 1790, written by Ambitious Thai 8859. Tehachapi Fright. I live in a small town in Southern California called Tehachapi. The mountains up here are really creepy at night. There's stories of hauntings in the mountains and foothills and stories of skinwalkers. You don't whistle at night here. My creepy story was while I was ghost hunting with some friends. I put it in quotes because we normally just headed into the forest up the mountain and smoked on the cliffs. But we decided to go somewhere different that night. We headed into a place called Old West Ranch. It's rumored to be super haunted. Or at least that's what my high school classmates told me. I had barely lived there for 2 years at that point. Turns out that my bestie's stepdad owned the place at the time, so we were cool to go up and check it out. We didn't find anything up there, got stoned, got bored, headed back down the windy, single-lane mountain road. On the driver's side of the road was a steep drop-off, and on the passenger side, it was bushes, trees, and an occasional house. My bestie was driving, with her boyfriend in the passenger seat, and I was sitting behind him. I'm staring out the window, hoping to see like a deer or a mountain lion, or something normal for a mountain town. Instead, I'm seeing a really pale, humanoid-ish shape with what looked like stretched out limbs. It was moving alongside us, keeping pace with the car at 20-25 miles an hour, keeping to the bushes and trees along the side of the road. Literally right as I'm starting to ask if my bestie's boyfriend is seeing it too, since he is on the same side of the car, he yells, "What the hell?" And the pale thing came zooming out of the bushes, slamming into the front passenger side wheel. It hit the car, a small Saturn 4-door, hard enough to push us to the edge of the drop-off. We all started freaking the frick out. My bestie maneuvered the car away from the drop-off, then drove a good distance before we stopped panicking enough to stop and check the car for damage, and proof that we didn't collectively hallucinate. There was a new dent in the metal right above the wheel on the passenger side. A good size one too, almost the size of a hubcap. My bestie just saw a pale shape come towards the car. Her boyfriend described it as, "This pasty butt golem-looking fricker," which I can wholeheartedly agree is accurate. I know creepypastas are just spooky stories, but it legit made me think of The Rake. I've never gone back up to the Old West, and I don't know if I ever will, cause that crap was scary as hell. Case notes for file 1777. The Burlesque Glance, an Eldritch Dance. Were you seeing your sister in a different parallel universe? The curious aspect is, seeing whoever this girl was, perhaps not your sister, was through her window each time, and in her room each time. So is it proximity to a specific location that enables us to see into different universes without physically being there? I don't think your soul traveled to a different universe either. You were sightseeing in a different universe, one that is just as real as this one. Remember, they're all real in the colloquial sense of the word. But I think in terms of seeing to those places, it requires a certain spot in space-time, relative to the other matter here. But it's not the same space-time coordinates because the planet is moving, the galaxy is moving, the sun is rotating around the galaxy, and so on. So we're never in the same exact coordinate of space-time. So it's not space-time itself. It's perhaps the proximity to all your sister's stuff, her room itself, that enabled you to see into a version of her that wasn't in this universe. Latching onto her essence that was tethered with the room and all the objects in it, because she's always there, is what enabled it. That's my speculation on that. Space-time portals are very different though, and I'm not sure how that correlates exactly with space-time coordinates. I think they have to be bound by Earth's gravity for that to make any sense. So it's sort of like pulling space with itself. Very confusing given that gravity is literally just the curving of space-time, so that's a bit more advanced than I can go into right now. Anyways, I don't think fear was necessary. There's no malicious intent from this other version of your sister. Or it could even be, in that universe, it was a different sister entirely. That'd be interesting. Case notes, file 1778. Memories Twisted, Truths Unlisted. Well, +1 for mentioning The Expanse, the best sci-fi show ever made. Condensed. You still have your Star Treks and Stargates, and those are awesome, but they're very spread out, with little nuggets of brilliance mixed into them. Very different kind of show where The Expanse is just amazing from start to finish, in my opinion. But yes, the quote is true. The more you think about a memory, the more easy it is to access, but the more you deform it. It's like breaking down a sandcastle and then reforming it. Every single time you go back to look for it, you might have the path traced on the beach to where it is, so it's easier to find, but every time it's slightly different. And then you're always referencing from the last time to recreate it, so those memories are reinforced, and they feel real. That's the craziest part about it. You're so convinced that that memory is accurate and what really happened, but it's your brain playing tricks on you. That said, the memories you're discussing here, it's not just a detail being wrong, it's an entire sequence of events over minutes that never happened. That's beyond what I think is just memory incongruities. I think this probably was a memory seeping. I think this probably really did happen in a different universe, just not in this one, but the memories switched over. It might even be related to a soul transfer event. So you probably didn't die. you in a different universe came over and brought the memories with you. We always think of it for quantum immortality from the perspective of the person that died and has moved over to a different universe. But what about the person that's already there? Unless they're just like blank templates, but I don't think that's the case. I think we have a soul that's connected to each version of ourselves. And almost like in the movie The One, where they can merge and become stronger. Not like physically stronger like in that movie, which was fun, but no. We merge personalities and memories. So sometimes memories just come into play that we don't remember having because they didn't happen to us. Not to us in this universe, just in a different us. Which is kind of exciting. I don't want to wish death on any version of myself, but hey, if it happens, be interesting to see their memories. Now time for the quote of the day. The purpose of life is to fight maturity. Dick Werthimer. Hence my dad jokes every Friday and Saturday. Maybe maturity is the wrong word, but you gotta still enjoy life. Have some fun with it. Be serious when it's important, but never get so, like the old man meme, or cliche, getting old and get off my lawn, or I'm so mad. No, don't grow into that person. Fight against that. Because everything will kind of attune to that because you get older, you've seen everything. Basically, as you get older, the magic can be lost, so try to hold on to the magic. With humor, with new experiences, however you can. Okay, Sounds for Foul 1779. The casino car. But who's that girl? Bizarre. So what is a camera? A camera is taking light, which is just fluctuations in the electromagnetic field, and converting that into detailed structure, what we understand as reality. Now, can light from a different universe seep over into ours? Maybe again in specific places where the membrane is thinner. I think so. I wonder if the shutter speed or the flash, if you took a flash from the camera, could trigger that kind of breaking. So you just took a picture of a girl in a different universe that was also in that car, in that same geographic space. Universes are basically stacked one on top of each other. Think of it almost like Pringles in a can, although a much larger and wider can, but it's basically stacked on top of each other in more dimensions than the three we know, but that's basically how I view it. I think you just took a picture of a girl that does not exist in our reality, which is actually extraordinary, and you still have it. A picture of a girl in a different universe. Whoa. You could probably even test that with NSA technology, which probably has every picture of every human being alive, pretty much. Run it through that if we had access to it, and you could probably determine, yeah, this girl does not exist here. Although that is creepy as hell, that's probably possible to do. The NSA, CIA, way too much power. Okay, Sounds for Foul 1780. Pup's Secret Flight, From Driveway to Bedtime Delight. There are many instances of pets, especially cats, but sometimes dogs, just materializing through doors. I think in this case, it's beyond that. You mentioned a road, so my guess is it's a space-time portal, maybe created by your guardian angel. So they just open a portal in front of the dog. Maybe it's easier to do this on roads, which is why they're so frequently found on roads. I don't know, that's kind of weird, but maybe there's a hard-coded rule for the simulation. I don't know, but moving on, I think a space-time portal opened up for this dog, and they just zipped him right into bed. They just connected one end to the bed from the road. So he just walked on in. So from his perspective, he's like, okay, I'm in bed now. Yay. If only that could happen every single time. Every dog owner would be much happier. I could let Ben out when he needs to go, just open a space-time portal on the door. I have to keep my door closed to not let the light in because I'm a vampire. So he zips outside, pees, does his business, and then can come back in without barking. Fantastic. Where do I buy this portal gun? Guardian Angel? Give it to me. I guess that's against the rules. Damn. Okay, Sounds for Foul 1781. Okinawa bangs and timer clangs. So I wasn't aware of what a Lauren station was, so I looked it up, and it's some sort of navigation system, which is kinda cool. The most interesting part to me is the fact that you weren't scared. I don't think I've read a story where there was obvious supernatural power involved, and the person speaking or writing wasn't scared, terrified out of their mind. Personally, I think that fear is almost always misguided. There was a story a long time ago about a priest that was roaming the country in the US, I believe, just going from one supernatural event to the other. And he mentioned that in his view, demons and whatnot are not, or like spirits, they're not a threat. They're generally not a threat. And I think that's true. I think there are exceptions, but generally speaking, most are not malicious. And even those that are don't have much power to affect the material world. It's not like a spirit could just run up behind you and, grab your heart and rip it out, like Mortal Kombat style or something like that. Or you saw that a few times in Supernatural, which they never did again for some reason. But anyways, that made them freaking terrifying. You'd have to wear a suit of armor, an iron armor suit all the time to guard against that. I don't believe that's what spirits are. They're echoes of us, and most of us are pretty peaceful. Maybe we go a bit loopy over time, but other than that, not malicious. Probably just a spirit having a cranky morning or something. If they even have to sleep, probably not. But something about you is interesting because, per all accounts, you've never read Glitch in the Matrix stories, supernatural stories, but you weren't terrified. So I don't know what it is about you that was different, but it's very notable. Very rare to have a calm spirit in the presence of spirits. Also, I was thinking of the dog meme of the bombastic side-eye when you mentioned they were side-eyeing you, the EXO and engineer. It's like, what is this guy on? Is this guy high? There are no spirits here. That's not real. Yeah. Now time for the quote of the day. It is bad luck to be superstitious. Andrew W. Mathis. So funny to include this on a paranormal, story, but I think it applies generally because a lot of luck is what we make of it. If you're superstitious, you think, throwing salt over your shoulder is bad luck, or is it bad luck, or breaking a mirror or something like that, your mind will subconsciously affect your actions to produce negative outcomes. It's almost like the placebo versus nocebo effect, where just believing that you can heal your body, or believing that something is helping heal it, versus believing that you are sick can make you sick, and so on. Some of it has real mechanisms involved, but I think generally speaking, it's just affecting how your mind is controlling your body. At the cellular level, or just on the macro level, where your actions, determine your fate, more or less. The choices you make and so on. So I don't really believe in luck per se, or anything affecting luck, but I do believe that believing in it can have a dramatic impact. Yeah. Case notes, file 1782. Clarksville chill, when time stands still. I think time events are one of the more interesting kind of glitches, because they're infrequent, and I don't believe they really indicate server instability. Or if they do, it's manageable instability. It's not like dead pixels in the sky, where I think it's literally total server collapse, or where the sky blinks out. Actually, I think they could be related. Maybe this is just, a tangent, but bear with me. Maybe the dead pixel in the sky, if you were inside one when they formed, then you would perceive it as all the sound and light going out, like people do, like the sun blinking out. It's not really the sun, it's everything. So that's what a dead pixel is. It's just a smaller event. But when they're larger, so it almost looks like a black hole from outside. But back to this, time events, I think maybe our server failure or server slowdown. Sometimes, you're using your computer and it's just slower for a little bit of time. Maybe that's what this is. It's just the server trying to catch up, which is terrifying in the context of being on a road and cars are kind of frozen or moving slowly, and then boom, they just start going back at full speed. Don't stand on roads if you see things are slower than usual, because they'll pick back up most likely. It could also be related to quantum immortality, where you're still consciously aware of the shift and you're just ported over to a different place and there's no buffer for this time for whatever reason. They do it seamlessly by slowing down time. But I don't think that applies in this case because someone was seeing you pumping gas as well in that one time. So no, I think in this case it really was your local region has a faulty server that slows down sometimes. Maybe they'll replace it eventually in the real world and then it'll never happen again. That's my guess. Although I admit it doesn't account for everything, because sometimes there are stories where people experience slowing time, but only them. They're at a restaurant or they're in their home with their wife and time slows down, but the wife never experiences it. So unless they're an NPC, no soul, they're just part of the simulation. Maybe, But I don't know, maybe there's another missing part that we don't have just yet. Case notes are file 1783. Coat gone awry in night of grocery lies. Racking my brain for stories of DOP? Lately, maybe always, it's very uncommon for the items not to return. Just realizing that now. But in these stories, it's almost always, okay, I lost an item, months later or the same day or years later, came back. But in this case, even after 3 years, it still never came back, which is peculiar. I was speculating that perhaps it has to do with our focus on the item, and if the item is really unimportant and we never think about it, then the managers of the server, they don't really care because, you're not thinking about it, so it's not a priority. If they have 1,000 pounds of gold in their vault and that disappears, I think the person owning that gold is gonna think about it 24/7. So that's a top priority to fix. But if it's a Coke bottle, sure. If they bring it back, you wouldn't drink it anyway, so it's probably better that they don't. You would have more questions if they returned it than if they didn't. Case notes file 1784. The Bonkers case of the 5-minute chase. So I want to say space-time portal. That's the thing that fits the most at an initial glance. But then you're mentioning this intersection, which you don't have to cross, but you did. After you crossed the intersection and you didn't have to. I mean, you were 3, so the memories of this could be fuzzy. Maybe you did cross, the guardian angel was trying to keep you safe, so they opened a space-time portal to help you get home quicker. Because, obviously a 3-year-old getting lost is not a good thing. But that's probably what happened, and I think to explain these space-time portals, having entities that have managerial powers over the simulation, that's a pretty good explanation as far as I can go. Or maybe the government too. Maybe they're even aware of guardian angels, thinking of them as aliens. They could even be aliens. Maybe it isn't the developers of the simulation. We could still be in a simulation, but it's really just alien players that are here observing us and see oh yeah, maybe we want to assign ourselves to individual humans and try to keep them safe. Who knows? If they have cloaking technology, anti-gravity and all that, they could be hovering above us all the time. But it would also explain why sometimes people aren't saved. Because if they are just aliens, they don't have omniscience, they can't be aware of every single thing that happens, and they can't be in every place that happens. If they're developers, managers in the server, well, they probably would be aware of everything, so that would explain some plot holes in this theory. But however you got home, it has to be that someone was looking out for you. Now time for the quote of the day. Christopher McCandles. Rather than love, than money, than faith, than fame, than fairness, give me truth. Yeah. Truth is, it's a kind of currency, you could think of it as, or reputation, where if you're always truthful, well, barring some white lies. Am I fat? No, honey, you're not fat at all, etc., etc. Important truths, let's say that. Truths that really matter. If you're not one to stretch the truth or commit fraud or lie, just be honest about the situation. Never trying to up yourself beyond your station, beyond what's happening. Artificially, people will gravitate towards people like that because they're kind of rare. I think most people do lie to some extent to benefit themselves. And, often for normal people, it's nothing major. But still, if you have a really, really deeply, almost perversely honest person, you want to be around them because they're reliable, they're trustworthy, there's stability in them. And that is something we all crave. So be that person. Be the honest friend. Case notes, file 1785. Bewitching laughter. The dark hereafter. This is a dark story, and I don't know if it is her mind that is simply broken. You say that she had scans and medical tests done and they can't figure out what it is. So maybe it isn't medical. I mentioned before that I don't believe that spirits and demons and so on are really malicious or there's much of a threat in that realm. But there are exceptions, and maybe this is one of them. Maybe she really is possessed by a demon. And it's not the Constantine kind of demon where it's visual. It's an essence that possesses her. It could even be a malicious or evil spirit that has somehow figured out how to inhabit her body. And that personality is in conflict with hers and sometimes merging together and driving her mad. And if you're experiencing this, maybe it's impossible to even convey what it's like. If you suddenly woke up and you were angry and you had a different personality, or maybe you were seeing things, hallucinating, would you think you're being possessed, even knowing these stories? I probably wouldn't if it happened to me. So just not knowing what the hell is going on would add to the insanity, I think. Again, just a very sad story. I hope she's better. And moving away, you say, helped, which is something. Maybe the spirit is bound to a certain location and not being there loses their power. Maybe over time, the spirit will fade away. If demons are just spirits that are malicious, then it would apply the same in that context. So hopefully that's the case. Case answer file 1786. A tumble and a glare in the midnight air. Not much of a glitch per se in this story, but I included it anyways because I love a good mystery. And that question is going to gnaw at me as much as you. What the hell did this person do? How was the blood dry? Did they injure someone? Did they have someone in the back trunk that was kidnapped? Or was it actually a glitch where they had somehow experienced a lot of time in this crash period? So much so that the blood had already dried. My guess it's the former. And if so, it's kind of miraculous in a certain context. Because if you were being kidnapped, you would rather take your chances in a crash and hope you can be saved by the medics and police that arrive than wherever he's taking you. If that's the case, that's a very potent silver lining in a very weird and dangerous story. Case answer file 1787. Thwarting doom from a pheasant's room. It really is a case where human beings are the grand threat. Sometimes you might have a case where you're being possessed by a spirit, but that's so infrequent and so rare, per my experience finding these stories, that I don't... In raw numbers, there's so many evil human beings, and as a percentage of the whole of humanity, it's extremely tiny, but there's so many humans that ends up that there's still, millions of really, really screwed up people. You say you weren't smart enough to call your parents, but at least you were smart enough not to open the door. At your age, I might have opened the door. I was very naive back then. And this had to be planned on their end. They must have been staking out the house for a long time, waiting for the parents to leave. Maybe they even somehow tricked the parents into believing there was an emergency at the hospital, and there wasn't actually. They were so far away that it would take them probably an hour to get there and an hour to come back, even if they immediately realized it was fake. Stories like this make me want to have very secure doors. Yeah. And those, I don't know what they're called, but those homes where you have a door, you open, you enter the main door, and then there's still an enclosed space. And there's another door leading into the actual house, like a double door system. And that's good for weather control as well. You're not letting cold air or warm air out, so on and so forth, depending on season. I don't see homes like that anymore. I don't even know what it's called. It's like not a foyer, but a code room or a shoe room or whatever they're called. They're great for security. Open one door, not the other. I'm going to have that in my house eventually. Now time for the joke of the day. Last night, I thought my wife was watching a really scary movie because she was yelling at the TV. "Don't go in that church, fool! Run!" I asked her what she was watching. She said, "Our wedding video." Well, I guess she's unhappy in the marriage. Sign number 1. Ouch. That's kind of brutal, though. Damn. Case answer file 1788. Fire gleams and Cairo screams. Okay, so finally we have a story where the dad, the parent, is, absolutely phenomenal. Win dad for sure. No kidding. I mean, almost every story, the parents don't believe the kid when they're coming to them with information or some concern. And I get it, it's a kid. You don't really think they're aware of the normal world as much, but that's true. They're aware of the supernatural world more than adults. So pay attention. If a kid comes to you and says, "I saw a monster in my closet," don't laugh at them. Go with them, check it out, confirm that nothing's there. Humor them is the word. And sometimes maybe they're right and there is a monster and, have to prepare to battle a monster. Probably not, but you never know. So be a dad like this. Take your children's concern to heart. And especially when there's no reason not to. It didn't cost you anything to just switch cabs. Brings me such delight to read this story. Just, yes. That's how you do it. Caisson to file 1789. Voices clear that bring mysteries far and near. So the first quick story, probably an alien encounter, which there just aren't many alien stories anymore. I wonder, is that because people are bored and they're not making them up, or are aliens not being seen anymore? Or are aliens just government aircraft and now they're not testing them in view of the public anymore? One of those is true, I don't know which one, but there definitely aren't many alien stories anymore. Not that I've seen. And I mean, this one happened years ago, over a decade ago, so yeah, just confirms that even more. And the second story, I guess, could be a guardian angel event, just a minor one. Someone's looking out for you and they want you to not have hearing problems because I hate the sound of alarms. Cover your ears, that's something that I would say if I was a guardian angel looking over someone. Sure, protect their hearing. Yeah. If you go to concerts, by the way, wear hearing protection because you're going to lose your hearing. It's so damn loud. I never liked loud noises. Fireworks are beautiful, but I always covered my ears. Very sensitive hearing. Okay, so it's file 1790. Tehachapi Fright. You don't whistle here at night. That is a deeply gut-wrenching line. You go somewhere and someone says, be very quiet. You know there's danger afoot. Maybe just wild animals, but still. Oof. What you described is almost like a Slender Man kind of story, or there were stories where, on mountains especially, there's often fog accompanying some sort of monster. There's so many different versions of them, it's probably one entity that can manipulate how people perceive it while still being very strong, as evidence to the damage of your car. But it didn't actually harm you, where in my view it probably could have. So I think it was scaring you off more than trying to, eat your soul or something. Which is definitely preferable. Now time for the joke of the day. I saw a woman drop her purse in the high street this morning, so I quickly followed her. As I was just about to tap her on the shoulder, she started running for a bus. So I ran after her shouting, "You dropped your purse! You dropped your purse!" She didn't hear me and proceeded to get onto the bus, so I got onto the bus too. As I walked to the back of the bus, I breathlessly said, "You dropped your purse on the ground outside McDonald's." "Thank you so much," she said. "Where is it?" "I just told you. It's on the ground outside McDonald's." Well, hey, at least he told her, could have brought it with you, but hey, conveying information is something. Oh man. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.